I'm sitting here with two titans, two champions, two winners. This is Gregg Williams and Blake Williams. As far as I know, they're the first father-son Super Bowl winning duo.
Exactly.
And today we're just going to get into learning about their mentality behind leadership, their mentality behind coaching, development, and everything in between. So, Greg, thank you for coming in. Blake, thanks for jumping in. Gents, why don't we just start by giving a little background about ourselves? Like, Greg, let's start with you.
Well, the big thing is I've had the opportunity to coach at all levels of football for the last 40 plus years and been very blessed that 36 of those years were in the NFL. And out of those 36 in the NFL, 32 of them has been the coordinator or the head coach. And it's about leading people. It's about doing things that makes them the best. It's about managing them. And it's about, going through to do whatever it takes to win that day. You got to win that day every single day. And, I grew up that way. And the players and the organizations I've had and been blessed to be in understand that on every day is an interview. And the interview is from me to you and from you to me. And there is no excuses.
Beautiful, Blake.
Yeah, I mean that's a mantra that we live by. I mean, every one of our players. Like we had our players sitting here right now. We're talking about that. We say, "What is every day?" And they say, "Every day is an interview." And in professional sports or just in life sometimes when you have any sort of hierarchical structure, I think too often we think of this, hey, every day is an interview, like I owe it to the people above me on the bosses. But if you want to have a successful organization, and I don't see this enough in professional sports or big business, is understanding that you should be more indebted to and you have more of a responsibility to the people below you on the hierarchy, not the people above you.
That's a home run, Blake.
The people above you should be there because they've earned it, because they have the requisite knowledge, all that type of stuff. Like they should be able to handle their jobs themselves and have you as, say, a middle level manager, a C-suite or whatever, do your job, right? Your cog in it. And do right by them, but not have to say, hey, babysit them, right? Like leadership is not this, okay, I've gotten to the CEO level, or I am the business owner, I am the head coach, so now I can just, hey, kick my feet up and relax, and all the rest of you, peons go work, right? And you're all interviewing to me. No, you're interviewing to them every single day on why should I listen to you? Why should I follow your lead? And so we talk about that all the time, is every day is an interview, but we make sure the people that we lead understand, hey, that's not just you to us, but that's you to each other, your peers and your teammates,
to each other,
to build very high performing teams that have to be successful together in fluid environments. But even more importantly, what is missed too often in leadership, hey, that's us to you. That's us to you, and understanding that you're following our lead and you're going to respond more to what you see more so than what you say. Right?
Exactly.
If leaders' actions don't match up with their words,
exactly,
right? People can smell BS a long way off, and that's where you have kind of morale and culture start to devolve, right? Because they're like, oh, this guy's not about what he's or girls not about, ladies not about what they're talking about, what they're preaching. Yeah, exactly.
And I don't want to do all my hand signals, but I say what I mean, and then I mean what I say.
Mhm.
And that's in the very first meeting with every person I have a chance to lead, and they get it. And that particular point of emphasis is evaluated every day. Do you look the other way on certain people? No. That's not how big businesses are run. That's not how great teams are run. That's not how we manage perfection, okay? We have to say what we mean what we say, and then don't be shocked that the results are pretty doggone good.
So, tell me where that mentality comes from. how
I know where it comes from for me. You're seeing it, right? Like nature versus nurture. And I tell people all the time, I got screwed on both ends of the stick, so to say. But G Dub, where did it come from?
Yeah,
For
the
you,
big thing
your
was
background?
that growing up with nothing, growing up and being told over and over again by people outside your own family that you can't be anything, you can't do this, you can't. Well, one of the best motivating factors for me in my life is to tell me I can't do something. Well, a lot of these great young men and women in your organization, they've had to go through some of those same trials and tribulations also. And all of a sudden now they're reporting to or getting a chance to listen to and please somebody that understands their job. Somebody understands that there is nothing you can't do as long as you're not afraid to do more work when nobody else is watching. You don't have to be the centerpiece. It's the amount of work you do when nobody else is watching. Okay? That's how you turn out to be great. And be it a player, be it an administrator, be it an owner. Okay? Same way, same how. And I get hired to make sure the owners understand that too.
So tell me more about the actual professional experience of the NFL. I know you said you were a head coach, and you said it was defensive coordinator as well,
And special teams
and
coordinator.
special teams coordinator.
Mhm.
Okay. What teams did you work with? Who did you get through? You said 35 years. That's a long time.
Well, the big got a break back in the late 80s, in 1989 after the season was over, and started in 1990 at the Houston Oilers. And was there all those years that all of a sudden the owner, Bud Adams, decides to take that and transition it to Nashville, Tennessee, and become the Tennessee Titans. So that club, that organization, I was with both of those and starting it up big there, and then left the Titans after the Super Bowl year and went to the Buffalo Bills to be the head coach. Left there because I would not fire some coaches that they wanted me to fire. And me and those three coaches, the four of us, have won 9 Super Bowls since we walked out of there that day.
Combined,
And combined.
Mhm.
And let's see, the Bills haven't won a Super Bowl. So anyway, that comes to how you have to manage things. But then I went down to Washington, D.C. to go back with the old Redskins with Joe Gibbs when he came out of retirement and was still in NASCAR, still is, and got them rolling again. They haven't won a playoff game since I left there. Not that I would be managing or competing against that thought. And then left, and Blake started with me too there at the Redskins, and then left and went to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then we went to the Saints, and we won a Super Bowl, the very first father-son to ever win a Super Bowl on the same coaching staff. We left and went to the Rams, and then in St. Louis. But I guess when people see me coming around, they think that I'm okay with how you transition a team. I was involved in the transition of leaving the St. Louis Rams and going to the LA Rams, and I really wanted to stay in St. Louis for the rest of my career because I was born on the other side of the state, had family and everything on the other side of the state, had a big foundation for children on the other side of the state over by Kansas City in the state of Missouri. But transitioned out to the LA Rams and then left there and then came to the Cleveland Browns and fell in love with the people of Cleveland, and then left Cleveland and went to the New York Jets. But then the last 2 years, I've been helping Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jerry Cardinale in the XFL and now UFL, because it's very, very important for the National Football League to have a minor league too. Back when I was the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, I signed tons of players out of NFL Europe that the NFL sponsored and had sponsorship because it needs a minor league to close the talent disparity on how you evaluate people and how you evaluate players that can actually play in this sport. This past year, there were 420 players in the UFL, and 355 of them had had a shot in the NFL and were still looking for an opportunity to play more in the NFL. And then now we're here. I'm back in Cleveland, with the fans and with the family here too. And there's three places in life I'm most happiest, and 1 around my family, 2 inside the white lines competing, and 3 helping others be the best they could be, helping others do things that they were told they couldn't be, and through charitable type of things. And that's why we're going to move the Gregg Williams Foundation up here.
What is the Gregg Williams Foundation?
Well, the Gregg Williams Foundation is a big benefit to do anything we can to help the communities that are in, but the big thing is helping children be the best that they could be. Help children continue to advance and move up, through scholarships, through medical things, anything to do with a child, okay?
Leadership
It could be
development.
teams, leadership development, organization, academics, athletics, anything to get them to move up the ladder to be the best person they can be, and we do that with children.
Yeah, and that's what the Williams Foundation, started as and has continued to grow. And as we move it here to Cleveland and make it a legacy fund, as I take over as the president of it, and we would hear that will continue to be its charge, but make an impact here in all of Northeast Ohio and then hopefully beyond. But it's the mission first and foremost of the foundation is making impact generationally through our children, through the next generation on, like you talked about, giving them opportunities that we didn't have ourselves, or giving them no excuses to say that I didn't have the opportunity, right? And so go out and seek those kids, those people, the next generations, our next leaders, and say, hey, what are you passionate about? What are you great about? Because you're going to continue to make this country great and your family great through the next generation as we chase generational increase as a country and generational wealth as families, right? And create those environments and create those educations and create those endowments and create those situations where our kids can do that, right, and make that impact through leadership and empowerment.
And when I started this foundation thought process, back when I was the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, who would ever thought that Gregg Williams from the little bitty town that was told that he couldn't do this, couldn't do that, but all of a sudden now you're a head coach in the National Football League, was about kids. And the big thing, like I said earlier on, is that one of the most motivating factors to me or anybody I've ever been around is tell me I can't do something. Okay, and all of a sudden now they're wanting to establish something with Gregg Williams' help to let other kids say, yeah, I can do something. Help me grow, help me know what I need to do. And then there's been all kinds of young kids and stuff now that they've gone on to be successful. They've created their own foundations now, and they're doing the same thing. That is a great, great salute to saying thank you.
And that's a large part of like our impact on what we're doing, even us at this stage in our life and our career, which is continuing to be, like G-Dubs talked about, you take our transferable skills and continue to teach, motivate, inspire, and make impact wherever that's needed, right? Especially in the business owner, C-suite, leadership world out there in the world, but then connect that to the next generation as well, to even remind those people that somebody helped, just remember somebody helped you get to where you were at.
No doubt.
And make impact in that. And so with our company, our executive coaching and consulting company called Championship Coaching and Consulting, where we do the consulting, the public speaking, and then we do these large, high ticket mastermind events. A large portion of all of those revenues from those different things in that business go back to charity. Our charity write-offs for those people getting our coaching and guidance, seeking our public speaking, coming to our masterminds, but go back and fund that. And money is one thing. We also tried to bring in the light of connected people or connecting people, and we all need role models.
Exactly.
Also trying to bring some of those people into some of those events with our kids as well too, and some of their businesses and brands to just give as many different visions as we can be, right? What if the kid's a little girl with different skin color than mine and whatnot, right? You know what I mean? And so as we know, it's impactful sometimes as well too to see a vision of yourself. Like that was the whole principle behind the Barbie doll, right? And why there's so many Barbie
Yes.
dolls, and the evolution of the Barbie dolls is for every little girl in the world to be able to see a version of themselves, right? And so try to do that same thing through impactful leadership and mentorship.
So tell me more about the consulting. Tell me more about the coaching program. What are you guys doing when you get to an organization?
And so it's white glove, it's holistic. And so it starts with, at the end of the day, as anything, like if you're going to make impact, it's like, okay, where are the pain points? What do you need? What do you need? No different than every time we would go into an organization.
Yep.
It's like, hey, these are how you build a culture. Like tried and true, we've done it. This is how you come into town, Wyatt Earp style, and change a culture, flip a culture.
And that's my nickname
yeah.
too, Wyatt Earp.
And change stuff, and whatnot. So it's like the principles, the protocols are there, but now you also have to go in and look at it with it's not just a shotgun blast, right? You have to have a surgeon's touch as well too on like what exactly is needed, what needs to be tweaked, why is success not happening? Why do we think that's happening? What do you need, right? And then go in and build, okay, fine. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to solve for, and build the system and guidance, to that. Is it a communication standpoint? Do we have communication issues, right? Do we have bureaucratic issues like that are bottlenecking this organization? Do we have people that feel like they don't have a say or ownership, right? So why even speak up? Right? So is there a difference between, hey, we champion free thought and we champion, hey, let the best ideas win, but then we don't actually let that be the case, or people are afraid of repercussion because of this one micromanager over here and stuff like that, right? And so what is the problem? I mean, usually, though, it comes back to motivation, morale, and communication, right? And usually it comes back to one of those things. Sometimes it's something in the analytics, right? Like just a broken chain of decisions. But that's what we do. We come in, we evaluate it, evaluate what is needed, evaluate what impact you want, and then develop what the KPIs are going to be around that, and then build the guidance for it. So that's the one-to-one kind of consulting business package through what we do. We also, though, do public speaking for events, whether it be motivational, charity type events coming in. Like he's a phenomenal MC, phenomenal like draw. I mean, people love me, big time charitable events or big time events for companies where they have their end of year, say, events. And then the masterminds, which are what you'd imagine, these all day events where you're getting these TED, like 6 to 8 TED Talk level, high level engagements, but then the breakout sessions as well too, where you're really getting that time to learn how that really works and ask questions around it. Yeah, not everybody. I mean, we got to understand. We know this with our players, right? And so same thing with a bunch of C-suite. We can just go out there and give a mastermind all day long, and there are certain people that sit out there and they can hear you talking theory. You can even give them like case studies, but it doesn't resonate with their way of thinking and the way their mind works. No matter how smart they are, there's certain people that if it's not personal and tangible, like you can give them the exact example of what exists in their business. Like, hey, here's this situation, here's this case study, we did it. And their business is 100% the identical scenario. But they've got to raise their hand and ask, well, what would you do in this situation? Mm-hmm. And instead of being condescending and be like, you mean 100% what I just said? Yeah. Like you have to take that person through it. And so like that's what we get. We understand that from our coaching background. It's not just about, hey, telling. It's about telling, it's about showing and giving you the opportunity to demonstrate back to us that you comprehend and understand it in a usable manner and be able to bridge any knowledge gaps that are going on. Like, so we've really tried to create this coaching clinic style mastermind event as well too.
And from experience and credibility, you know, I've been blessed, as Blake was just talking about, to be able to talk to all different types of crowds of people. I've spoken at the White House, I've spoken at the State Department, CIA, Secret
Pentagon.
Service, okay,
Yeah.
Pentagon, the SEALs, West Point, and then almost 100 of the Fortune 500 companies. So there's all different styles of intellect that he just talked about, people, employees, different levels of employees. Is that how do you get somebody to actually pay attention to you? How do you get something to be able to cross into their mindset to make them make a significant difference to be better and to be more successful? We have that experience. I've had that experience with an awful lot. And when you look back now on the National Football League, I've had the opportunity to coach over 2,500 of the NFL athletes that start from training camp on down. So there's been a lot of different personalities, a lot of different intellect, a lot of different intelligence. So how do you get a chance to get them to zone in and be the best they can be? We have that experience.
And I'll piggyback on this right here. And this is something I learned both from you, but then I learned from doing it, right? I learned from becoming very quickly and overnight, like the youngest defensive coordinator in the history of the NFL, right? And you got to grow up fast, right? At 26 years old, right? And you've got other coaches that you got players that you're the top boss of, call it, that are older than you. You've got coaches who answer to you who have children older than you. But you're the one making, like, where the buck stops and making the final decision and leading. And when I first, even though spending a life in football, growing up around it as a kid in professional football around him, and then a player myself, you come into it thinking like you're coaching players, like that's it. And realizing that as you become a leader and go up the rungs, as much as you are coaching players, you are coaching coaches. Right. And that's leadership. And the same thing in a business. There starts to become even when you go up to become a head coach, and then say even the GM or the owner, right? In a team, or even you go up to become a CEO and stuff like that, which is you talk about my girl Christy jumping in. So we talk about Chrissy, I'm gonna get on there. She totally made me lock the door.
Oh, good. Someone just came in the door, everybody.
Yeah. No. But no, we talk about, like, no matter like how high up you go up in the organization, you can get some like buffers and distance between you. And so how do you continue to make the biggest impact on the organization from that new chair that you're in? And it's not always by doing it the same way as you did when you were in that lower chair.
No doubt.
And you have to learn how to coach coaches, so therefore coach other subordinate leaders. And that's something I learned both from watching you do it, and then having to, obviously, like, learn on the job, doing it myself as well too, is how to coach other subordinate leaders.
And then you move up the ranks, just as you said, as the head coach, and now you're coaching owners, you're coaching administrators, you're coaching public relations, you're coaching equipment managers, you're coaching athletic trainers, you're coaching doctors who want to get looked at on the film and all that. Say, look at me out in the middle of the field. You need to help the player. Let's go. Let's get ready to roll. But how do you go about impacting all these people that are involved with how you go about running your company, how you go about running the win on Sunday or Monday night or Thursday night, okay? All those types of things. And I think that we have the ability to help a lot of different people continue to grow to be better than they've ever been before.
Okay. Now let's say you've just gotten bought on to work with a business. What would be the first thing that you would look at? What would be the first sort of questions you would ask? Greg, I'll let you kick this one off because Blake took that on last.
Well, the big thing is that you got to find out, what and we do a very good job of, when we get invited into this particular company, is that make them tell you what they need. Have you ever heard the word empowerment?
Yes.
When all of a sudden it's their idea, this is what we need, and then all of a sudden you meet their idea. You take care of what they believe is needed, and then you can transfer or grow it, take another stepping stone, and help them in other ways. But the most important part is not only as a speaker, you have to be a very good listener and you have to be a very good processor to make sure you're knowing you're doing what's best for them.
So like we were saying, a lot of them have to do with around like young Gen Z, and then just like this whole like work hacking, right? This whole thing where in the post-COVID world, work from home, like I'm maybe like working multiple different jobs and or constantly shopping my job, so to say. And they're worried about like, how do I do this? How, first of all, like we talked about earlier, and Gita mentioned it, it's like, oh, entitled, right? But like let's also remember that every generation consider like over in history of civilized society, right? Every generation believes the next generation, and if not the next generation, then at least two generations removed, the grandkid generation is entitled, right? And so much of that is like, okay, well, no, just things are different, like how technological and how social revolutions have changed the way that we go about like doing life and doing work. That's always been the case, right? In human civilization, that's always going to be the case. Like we know that. And so, but then two, yes, like COVID and this whole decentralized semi work from home work, in an office environment has changed a lot of things, right? And in part, we've talked about that. We've seen how that's affected depression, like lack of like connectedness in society. Like we are social animals, and like outside of the rare hermits out there and people who really like solitude, which you say you're the hermit, right? Like we are social animals and we like that, right? And so I try to to your second point, get them to understand that like we are still those people. So part of why that whole situation exists is because we are letting it exist. Not enough people are impacting, say from even my generation, are impacting and leading properly. Agreed. I would say this, that young Gen Z is the most broken homed, lack of leader generation that the American country has ever seen, period. I think my generation and that half generation between me and my father has probably done again, I said the poorer job of the American family dynamic and leadership. It devolves in schools. Like we know that where the education system has gone down. Like these kids are still the same kids. And what I found as well as too, they're not dummies. We can call them entitled. We can call them whatever.
They're not.
But in reality, they have more knowledge and more things at their fingertip, especially as like knowledge has been like democratized. Like, hey, to a degree, I went to Princeton, and to a degree, you can like get so much like Ivy League. When I was at Princeton 20 years ago, you can get all that information like on your phone or your whatever, or just ask like AI and whatnot, nowadays, right? And so they're armed with a lot of information. They have a lot of expectations. They know that. To a degree, they're looking around, sitting there saying, hey, like, why should I respect you just on plain seniority? Like I don't see you giving me the example of working hard. You're not moving me to action. You're not making me passionate. But those kids still yearn for that. They still yearn for that. But they're not. Really but it's not a generation that is just going to blindly follow. That day and age is over. And so I try to let them know that it's like, hey, you've got it's not going to just happen because you're paying them a paycheck, right? That they're just going to show up, salute, and like be thankful for that and follow you because of where your hierarchy is. Too much has changed. Like you have to make impact. You have to make them believe that you can, that you care about them. We talk about this all the time. Like they don't care what you know or the impact that you make until they know that you care, right? And it can't be this BS thing. Right? It can't be this water cooler walk through the office and say, hey, how's business? Right? Like you walk into so many companies and you see there's almost like they're so customer facing companies and companies that are really good at customer facing. And then they almost have that water cooler. They give that same smile right? And they say that same one line, right? As we walk by each other, hey, how's biz? And it's like, like I call it out. I call those spades a spade. I was like, you're just walking by and saying F you to me. Like you didn't listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't listen to me. Like you don't
I
care.
agreed.
And how about asking about me?
Yeah.
How's me? How's me? Do you know my kid's name? Do you know my wife's name? Do you know those things? And really connecting, right? And so they got to know that you care, that you're invested in them, and they've got to believe that regardless if you're like old school, more like a little bit more of a hardline manager or leader, or you're more of a new school, like free thinking, they've got to believe that where they work and who they're following, either or, like who they're following or the team, the organization itself is something that they want to be a part of and is going to improve their life, either by growth and development of skills or money or their trajectory, their career growth, either in this business or stepping stone to the next business, right? That you're going to affect their bottom end by growing and developing them. I would say this. I do believe this because I've seen this. I do believe that this generation, that people are saying, how do we motivate them? Like they're sensitive. They're all stuff like that. They're entitled. Like you can't yell at them anymore. Right? Like da-da-da and all that type of stuff. I would argue this, and I'm a yeller, right? Like I've been a yeller, like he's been a yeller. I would say that yelling is not the best form of communication. And not to get off topic, but there's lines of assertive discipline. And what people maybe don't know if they haven't really been in the foxhole with us is when we're yelling, we're doing it not so that you hear us. We're doing it We're doing it so that you feel us. Because there's been lines of assertive discipline where we've taught it, we've shown it, we've said it nicely, we've done all these things. And now you're at this crossroad and we believe in you, but you're at this crossroad where you have to crap or get off the pot, like you're about to be fired or up out of here. And so we're going to give you one last opportunity to feel me, and maybe that shocks your system and or you're out of there, right? But I do believe with all those things that we talk about, like how do we lead this? I do believe this generation is very intrinsically motivated. They are very intrinsically motivated. Part of it is they're not educated the same way. They don't have the same hierarchical natural respect. That's just a country thing, right? But they've got different levers. They've got different motivators than, say, the previous generation of leaders. So leadership is always like, what do I have to do? What moves you to action? What drives you? What impacts you? And then how do I connect where we need to go as an organization and where you need to go personally? How do I connect those things together to get you to go where you can't or won't go by yourself? That is leadership. That has always been leadership
Always
and
has been
motivation.
that way.
Always will be it. And so you have to understand that like times change. You have to change with it, right? As a
You have
leader,
to understand
right?
your team.
And that's what we do. I think that's one thing that probably we, from our background in coaching, get that maybe business owners don't, because the business cycle and the cycle of new generations of people roll over less frequent. In the NFL, there's a new dude every single year, and it's getting younger and younger and younger as athletes are continuing to come into the league younger and younger and younger. We're watching guys score touchdowns right now on Sundays that literally can't legally go out and sell. They're 20 years old. They can't legally go out and have a celebration drink after scoring their first touchdown, right? And so we live that. And so I think that's like one of those things that we just naturally have to adapt to and change from season to season. That season to season in business is sometimes like election cycle, right? Or business cycle to business cycle, election cycle to election cycle. And so that's another thing that we try to impact on these companies on, hey, how do you identify it ahead of time? Mm-hmm. And as soon as you identify it, be able to pivot and course correct and be in front of it. That is how you truly are competitive in your market.
Must be in front
you don't wait until, I have to change now. Everybody's changing, so I have to do it or die. No, if you want to be a market leader, you want to be a place that all of those young people actually seek out. I want to go work there, right? You constantly are on the forefront of that, and you create that system.
And you hit a home run on several things, and just simplification things is that a few things what you just talked about. The other thing now, and as Blake was mentioning, well, about how intrinsically motivated these young people are. Okay, also there are pictures in the dictionary next to ADHD. Okay, and their attention. Okay, you must focus yourself on how you create the environment to keep their attention focused on the improvement as a team. A company is a team, and every single player that plays inside the white lines has different types of abilities, different types of intellect. How do you get them all to be on the same mindset, the same team? And that is the involvement of others. You must involve them, and it's not just forcing your way on them. And I think Blake hit a home run on that stuff.
Into that, and tying that all in, right? A company that we know is kind of always stays in the forefront. And my younger brother, my baby brother, since he retired from being a middle linebacker in the NFL 7 years ago, has been a kind of executive headhunter team leader here. But Google, right? And Google does a great job at doing this, and they always have, which is foster an environment that's constantly being on the forefront of it, where people own initiatives, right? Where you can literally sit there and say, hey, you can spend we want to incentivize you to spend 20+% of your time actually looking at say everything we're doing and everything that's out there in the world. And when you have these thought seeds, you can spend actually paid company time, right? When you're on the clock, either sitting there saying, man, I've got to do it this way at Google. I've got to do my job this way. But with all these knowledge that I have, the reason I was brought into Google and all these things I see from the ground floor, I could actually revamp this system to make my job easier, way more efficient. Well, that's how Google continues to invent all the newest stuff, right?
Yep.
And they get it from the grassroots. But they understand, I know he's from on the hiring side of things, the level that they go through on the hiring side of things reminds me of what it was like going through the admissions process at Princeton, which is we know exactly what we're looking for and is going to be successful here and what we want to send out in the world for our brand. And we're looking for something that comes ready-made with stuff that we can't teach, because we will pour into that all the rest of the stuff, right? But we're looking for that elite stuff. Well, that's what they do through the hiring process. And then they allow a situation where you have ownership and buy-in. You feel you actually have ownership and buy-in. And hey, if it becomes something, you may become an overnight multimillionaire because you have actually equity ownership a little bit in this piece of tech or this piece of something that you created, right? And how that all of a sudden empowerment is powerful, how that empowers you, how that incentivizes you, how that taps into your natural intrinsic motivation that you came to Google for a reason, and you are going to leave Google if now you're crushed by having to only solve problems within this box. Right. We went and found, I watched this happen in so many organizations where the hiring process and the process of how then the organization is ran and how they make you fit into, they try and go get these elite outside the box thinkers that are flat doers, that are impatient and then they operate in this 2 generations ago, very staunch, nope, compliance, nope, you got to do things only within this sort of thing. And they wonder why people are continuing to go leave, and all of those people are continuing to go leave and be highly successful. They're not leaving the industry. They're leaving and going to your competitors and killing it at your competitors. All right, because you're identifying the right people, but you're crushing them in this failed paradigm. You're not giving them that intrinsic motivation and in their work that is what brought them there in the first place. So sometimes we come into companies like that and it's that aha moment. It's just showing them that. Yeah. And then them being like, man, yeah, I kind of felt that way. And dude, you're the boss. Yeah. You felt that way. What do you mean you felt that way? Who has the ability to change this? Well, me. Right. Okay, well, let's say, why haven't you changed it? Oh, I don't know. Okay. Hey, what are the effects? What are you afraid of? What are the ill effects to changing this and it not working out? right? And you literally take them through that process. What are the ill effects of not changing it and having things continue to go down this road? And sometimes when we say every day is an interview,
Every day.
that's what we do with clients as well too. Sometimes we go through there and we find out that with that CEO is, oh no, like you're hiding, right? Like you know what needs to be done. You just don't want to make that adjustment and have it publicly sit on you. And if all of a sudden things don't work out, like you're out, it's on you. Versus saying, hey, this is the way things have always been done. I'm grandfathered in here, so I'm not going to rock the boat. Yeah. And we're just going to exist in mediocrity. And I'm going to ride my golden parachute out, right? And if that's the case, it's like we not only can we not help you, but we don't want to work with you, right? Like we've seen that and done that before, right? Bill Walsh, the great Bill Walsh, he always used to say this thing, and there was this dynamic.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. Even back in the day, and this is a great point to wrap up this point on this, is he used to say the difference between an elite head coach and a GM, at least back in the days, 70s, 80s. He said, the GM is like, well, what if we spend all this money developing these people, these coaches, players? What if we spend all this money and effort and pour into them, and then they leave and go elsewhere? And he would look at him in the eyes and say, "What if we don't and they stay? Right. What if we don't and they stay? And what is more harmful and risky to the organization? Yep. Pouring into our people and doing everything for them in this fake. Hey, if we're really doing things the right way, they're probably not going to leave." And if they leave, maybe it's because that's their only, at the time, advantage to go spread their wings. They maybe realize grass isn't greener on the other side, and they eventually come back into the organization. Is that risky, or is it riskier to say we're not going to pour into them, we're not going to invest in them, and they stay around, and we have this stagnant mediocrity, kind of environment, and we die a slow or fast, painful death from that.
And I want to be on video complimenting you by not saying your little brother. He's not littler than us. He's a heck of a lot bigger than both of us as a linebacker in the National Football League. But the fact you brought up his experience and everything at Google, and he'll be one of the people that we have talking to all these people understanding and the masterminds.
No, because I've been a part of an organization where the mediocrity was all the way at the top. Mm-hmm. And I was also one of those transition people where it's like, I used to be in law enforcement as a corrections officer. And I'm coming into this organization with a college degree and an understanding of law enforcement on like a much larger level with my background. But then they're like, well, this is the way things have always been done. Well, we find out that the way that things have always been done were also illegal. So
yeah. So now we have an issue.
Now we have a major issue. So I wound up, like you said, I was a young guy. I was ambitious because ambition is going to be at every level of the social stat. There's always somebody that wants to be more, someone that wants to be led. So I left that particular area of law enforcement because I'm like, this isn't what I want to do. And no sooner than a year or so later did the FBI come into this place and from the top to the bottom, wipe out everybody from the head of the, just because we were not only existing in mediocrity, but we had been doing it for so long that we're now training the new people to come in as if this is normal. This is the expectation. So I'm being a bad employee, a bad CEO, a bad this, a bad that, based purely on what I was taught I was supposed to be. So it's like, poor leadership is infectious, the same way that good leadership is.
Agreed.
And so you have to make a decision on, like you said, what are you going to pour into your people? Mm-hmm. So that's huge.
And when you talk about it, and I forgot to mention on a couple other places I've had a chance to speak. I spoke at solitary confinement at Rikers, and I've also spoken in Angola
when we were at the Saints.
When we were at the Saints. So when you're talking about these people, don't question some of their intelligence. So they cannot control some of their emotions. They cannot control some of their impulses and that kind of stuff. But they're not all stupid people. They made stupid mistakes. Right. But you brought that on, and that's been another one of the things that have helped me reach all kinds of people.
Well, in the problem ultimately that we're hitting on, we're talking about that, is there's never been a time. That's really what we're seeing. And probably at all, like, we say like history doesn't always like repeat itself, but it often rhymes, right? And you just look at it again over time. Like that goes back to my Princeton days, my scholarly days, before becoming a coach, before becoming a leader. I was an ancient, I was a theology, philosophy, and politics major, right? Sort of thing. So all things, at the end of the day, history, right? From that. And things always kind of go in cycles, right? And in all kind of boom cycles, kind of like we're in right now, but no different than I would say like when you were in high school, right? Like in that whole Woodstock era, early Vietnam area and stuff like that, right? You're kind of in the same type of boom era, from that same like breaking down of the way things have been done, right? And whatnot, like real charismatic, real impactful, motivating leadership, real measurable leadership is at its most valuable in those times.
In those
times where people are not just sitting there saying, following you or listening to you or doing what you're doing or the company's doing because of the tradition, because of the hierarchy, right? Because of this belief in this outside force, right? When you're in these sort of situations and dynamics like we're in right now in our country, where they smell BS a long way away and say like loyalty to the company or to capitalism or whatever is at and belief in say fake news and belief in the politicians and the leaders are at such a low level, right? They're such a low level. All right. Well, that means that, okay, there's been a lot of fake leaders when say like there was way more traditional institutional say like controls going on, right? That was just sustaining it. It were the institutions and it was the traditions of the time that were sustaining it, not necessarily even the leaders. And so in times like these, I believe like the ROI on what we're talking about and the need for this type of like transformational leadership is even more at a high demand and needed.
And there are people in every walks of life that are screaming for help, screaming for advice, and we're listening. Okay, here we come.
No, that's unbelievably real. There's a lot of people out right now that they're craving leadership. They don't realize that's what they're craving, but they're craving leadership. And the way that I see that is because we mobilize around a lot of dumb shit.
A lot. I know.
But
I know.
Usually when it comes to the dumb shit, there's somebody at the forefront that allows that idea to be mobilized around. And just like you said, it's infectious. So we know that the generation coming needs this help. They need that guidance. They're craving it. They want it. It's just a matter of how many people are out there that are respectable and actually willing to do the work to earn that sort of respect from them, where it's like, listen, I want you to be better, and this is the guide, this is the way that you should go, follow along with me.
Well, and going back to right now, being able to hit all kinds of people, and growing up on that farm and for a while didn't have, plumbing, heating, electricity. I've shoveled a lot of horse shit, a lot of cow shit, a lot of pig shit, a lot of chicken shit, so I can help with the shit people too.
So you're saying you can smell shit from a
I
mile
can
away?
smell shit from 10 miles off.
Yep.
So now tell me a little bit about the mastermind that you guys have coming up.
Yeah, and so the idea around it is taking all the best of what you classically hear and see in these high level masterminds, right, that are out there, these single day events, and that's what it is, a single day event. But then combining it with the concept as well too, like I firmly believe in connected people are connecting people, right? So getting the ancillary, like getting the right people in the door as well too, where just the chance meetings that happen there as well too create exponential growth for various people's like aligned interests and companies, right? And so we know like that a lot of that comes out of like there's that form of like shared experience, right? But then coaching clinics as well too, right? Which is too often these masterminds exist, and we know them out there, right? They say, okay, this is a relatively untapped or not overly saturated market. So we're going to go into this and we're just going to pour into this. And we're really just going to have this either be a money grab, or we're going to use this really as just a one part of a 4-part or a 3-part like marketing funnel, right? And again, we go back to people aren't dumb. Right? People aren't dumb. And especially when you talk about like CEOs, business owners and stuff like that, like they smell that crap a long way away. And you only get one chance to make a first impression.
Only
May have one
chance.
hit mastermind event, but it's one of those sort of things and people talk, especially in the way the social media world that we're in now, like it gets out there. So we don't do that. We don't want it to be that, right? It is very much a high level. We're not just teaching you what, but teaching you how. We're not just teaching you the theory, we're showing you the reality and practice, the case studies. And then having the breakout time, because we know everybody hears different, learns different, everything, the breakout time to really go through and feel it, ask questions about it, simulate it, whatever, like, those things, right? And then let it simmer and spend the kind of after time, the networking time after time, in a way to, hey, get even more deep ingrained. Like, hey, I've been sitting there thinking about this for the last 2 hours, and now I really want to talk to you about this. Or I really want to talk to you about this, or how would you do this in this situation? And not let it just be one of those things where, like, hey, you got to pay me more for that information.
And the interaction.
You got to pay me more for that interaction, right?
Right.
No, like truly making impactful, high level, things, right? Like we're big on as well too is like, hey, this 1 hour, it's an hour time slot to do this topic. It's not going to be a 1 hour PowerPoint presentation. Nothing more drives both of us batshit than people who build presentations. You can clearly tell they build presentations to the time allotted, not to the information that they have to. Right? And so it's like, why was that a 60? And you'll sit out there and you're like, why was that a 60-minute? Because you gave them 60 minutes.
Yeah.
But just because they gave you 60 minutes to give a presentation does not mean you need to build a 60-minute speech. You'd be way better building a 20, 30, 40-minute speech and allowing the rest of time for question and answer, engagement. Hey, teach the topic and then get to asking them questions and see if they can actually articulate back to you, because you think you're articulating it right and they're following you and all the heads and eyes are on you and everybody's saying, yeah, nod. Yeah, hey, you got that? Yeah. I mean, that's the natural reaction for everybody, right? But you don't ever actually make them demonstrate mastery and comprehension back and give them the ability to have that
question and answer.
Organic brain group mob mentality brain thought right there. And that's not actually really going to impact and sink in, right? And so we firmly believe on that's why I keep saying these TED Talk levels of build the presentation to the most efficient and quickest way to get that high level information, say taught and told, and then get out of that as fast as you can and get into the usage of it. So now you heard it, but can you actually comprehend it and use it? How would you use it? How would this impact your job? How would this impact your job? What would this look like in your company? What would that look like in your company? Hey, sort of thing. And that's where we find it truly being, very valuable and have some of the extra, like you said, time be spent around humor, be spent around connecting.
You know how I've always done that.
Be spent around connecting and be spent around networking, where you get this real ancillary ROI out of just falling asleep, at a marketing event that was marketed as a teaching event, right? Like that's not what we're about. It's this it's an impact, event.
And you've heard me grow coaches and all this type of stuff. Is back in the old days when we first started it, you might be able to talk for 45 minutes without having that hesitation at all. You can't do that anymore.
Not in this
and I love what you talked about, 20, 30, 40. Guess what? Every single crowd, every single company, every single age of a person is different, okay? And you got to match what they need, okay? Involve them from a humor standpoint. And as you know, every single time I talk, we have some type of a joke and we get ready to go into that.
No, that's so real. I'm someone that's always I've always had the mind frame like, hey, this meeting could have been an email. You know?
Yeah. It's like,
No,
why
no.
are we just meeting? Are we just
No,
meeting
no.
to meet?
Like, why
Oh.
did we,
Yeah.
we could have just put
Oh,
this in
my
an email and
gosh.
sent it out.
Yeah.
And even when I was meeting with you, I mean, yeah, I put together the packets because it looks good on corporate, but I didn't come in there like, okay, guys, so everyone have a seat.
Yeah.
Here's a 45-minute breakdown of how I'm going to do your marketing. It's like, look, here's packets for the aesthetics. This is what I'm doing. Let's get into it. What do you want to know?
And Charles,
Yeah.
Charles,
What questions do you have?
Blake has grown up this whole culture of mine of all these years, 40 plus years at the highest level, 2,500 plus NFL players. The very first meeting that you get a chance, you get to listen to me, not got to. The very first things out of my mouth, I just get everything kind of pictured up on the screen, is I teach you how to sit in a chair. I teach you how to make eye contact. I teach you how to focus. I teach you how to listen. And then how do I control ADHD? It's my responsibility to go about doing those things. And it's worked for a long time. And it works throughout any types of companies, but you got to check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
I got to check my ego. They got to check their ego. And we have to use all of our five senses, not just one of listening.
Yeah. No, I think to this day, because they diagnosed me as an ADD kid, but it was really more like you're telling a young boy with a lot of energy to sit down in a classroom for 8
His
hours.
picture's in the dictionary next to
Listen.
ADHD. So you guys both on both ends of the definition. But that's
Just
exactly how he
blah,
is.
blah, blah,
I know.
blah, blah,
You
for
bet.
8 hours. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
like, no, you're just not telling him anything that's catching his
And
attention.
sometimes when I'm with all these players and everything, and when I challenge them about their ADHD, or maybe I'm a little bit grouchy in a meeting and that kind of stuff, they'll say, "Hey, you interrupted me. What? Did you work out today?" And I said, "No." I said, "Well, we can tell." And because I'm a lot better presenter when I've got my chance to work out to kill some of that stuff. But that's true.
But that's true, and that's a part of what we do. And we haven't mentioned that, but that's part of what I do. Me personally, in championship coaching and consulting as well too. It's like I started my coaching career as a NFL certified strength and conditioning coach. Like that's what I was doing. I was a strength and conditioning coach, and so I've built the diet,
Yes.
the protocol, and the program to not a player, not somebody who has 2 hours to spend in the gym every day, but a busy leader like we do, who doesn't maybe have the time to do all this meal prep or all this or that, or spend hours in the gym and whatnot. Like, how can I be in that type of shape,
Yes.
plain shape, so to say? And because it affects the way your mind thinks,
No
it
doubt.
affects the way you sleep at night, it affects the way you feel about yourself, so the
Yep.
way you hold yourself
Yep.
and communicate, and it affects the way people see you. You're not sitting there all day long, like, unless you're a narcissist staring in the mirror,
Agreed.
but the people you are leading are staring at you more so than anybody else in the room every single day, right? And so it impacts that as well too. And so that's a kind of an ancillary or add-on that I do with within the masterminds and within the coaching and consulting business. Is I train and give that 8-week body and nutrition in lifestyle
That's outstanding.
recomposition and reset program. It's called our 50-day challenge program, but I give that to them and coach them through that as well too, and revamp their not just their mind and their leadership thing, but then their body as well too. And so
That'll be one of our talks with all these people.
I think what's been interesting for the last few months hanging around so many different high-level people has been the continuity, how much what you guys say aligns across that level of success, where it's like, you know what, you got to care, you got to dial in, you got to focus, you got to work.
I say what I mean. I mean what I say, so I don't have that. But again, the evaluation process is with every word that leaves your mouth.
Yes.
But it's true. I mean, there's no shortcuts to success. Like, the pathways to success are maybe like the particular pathway changes from team to team, organization to organization, industry to industry. But like, there's no shortcuts to success, right? And it's the same thing in every world. And leaders, like G-Dub keeps saying, and like that's something we literally live our life by, which is say what you mean what you say. All right.
Every
And
day.
as leaders, guess what? Sometimes you are going, doesn't mean you seek out confrontation, but you can't be afraid of it. And at some point in time, like, you are going to piss people off.
Mhm.
If you got enough employees, it's going to happen probably daily.
Mhm.
That's just natural life.
Mhm.
You're a father of a multi-kid family, like you learn that every single day. Like a wife or a kid are pissed at you every single day.
Which kid
right?
they run
And you're
to for
Yeah, and
negotiation.
you're leading and providing. Like that's life in leadership.
Yep.
Like, you can't be afraid of that. And why I say that is, say what you mean what you say, is like, not tell me what I want to hear, not tell me what to make me like you. No, tell me what I need to hear. Tell me the truth, and tell me, and I can respect that, and I will respect that, right? And up front, right? Because nothing is worse than sitting there saying, hey, we're going to play the like game and get you to like me and buddy and whatnot in
gonna worry about
leadership.
that.
And then I go out and find out about it after the
Mhm.
fact. And now you've let the cancer and the disease creep in, and you've actually cut your own legs out from underneath you. You can't be a leader and do that. You will like euthanize yourself. It may be slow, but you will let your own fear and weakness in having the tough conversations and, hey, sticking by what you say and walking and living your talk. You will die a slow death by your own creation, by trying to make people like you versus respect you.
Versus being a very good leader. And I've said this so many times. I could care less whether you like me or not. I care tremendously about, do you respect me? If you respect me, now you're going to start trusting me. And respect and trust will probably later on down the road develop the likeness between both of us. And success makes it even better. But respect and trust are the two big characteristics that form a likeness down the road, and also improves every aspect of what you do.
And they are earned, not given.
They are earned.
Respect
they are
and
not
trust are
given.
earned, not given. They are not. They don't come with your fancy title in your corner seat,
No
and
doubt.
your corner office.
They
right?
are earned.
Respect and trust are earned, not given, and that goes back to every day is an interview, day in, day out.
No, I mean,
Home run?
it's this is absolutely a home run. I mean, this is gonna crush, just because, again, the continuity of all this, where these are things that I keep hearing from elite level people, but it does boil down to simplicity. Do the things that you said you were going to do. Bring the right type of energy. Be the kind of person that you yourself would want to follow. You know, it seems like it would be something that's simple and easy to understand, but if you look at all of these different organizations, businesses, etc., that are in shambles, it's like, no, this isn't common sense. It's not.
Or there's not, so too often there's not the discipline around
Not the
it,
discipline.
right? It's
Without
like,
about
okay,
it.
are you rushing in as the leader from wherever
Yes.
you're coming in? Are you coming in at the last second, right, unprepared? Or are you getting there an hour ahead of time, not to like necessarily even do extra work,
Yeah.
because maybe that's not necessarily your job. It's you're doing it so that the one time the road's closed or stuff's messed up, you've given yourself the buffer every day so that you are not late.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to ever
How do you develop respect?
How are you going to ever discipline and hold other people accountable to that if you yourself are late? But then two, when you're in a rushing late mindset, you're not in the focused mindset of being the leader and doing the job, right? And so, like, too often, like we were talking about, all these things that they know that maybe they need to do or seem simple, but they themselves don't have the discipline to do them day in, day out, or the structure of the prioritization. They're prioritizing all these other things that don't make a crap, all right, and they're not putting this thing at the top priority. And that's one of the things that we do sometimes. I build the sheet. I'll build the structural sheet for them like I've built for every place we go into, and I'll build it from top down and say, hey, here's the order of operations. And at any time, we start noticing things up here at the top
No
that
doubt.
we've said are the most priority start to go wayward, and we're trying to figure out what fat to trim. Guess what? Anything below that on the list. Because we prioritized it. We said, what do we focus on in a complex organization, in a complex moving market and environment? And hey, prioritize it right here. It's your cheat sheet as well too. And today, do I have the discipline every day to come in as a leader and stick to this order of operations? And when I have new initiatives, how do they fit into this? Right? And if all of a sudden it fits real good in this level, but it's messing with the number 1, number 2 priority, and it's down here at number 10 of like organizational non-negotiables, then I shit can it, right? Real talk. And so it's like, do you have the protocol and process in place, and do you have the personal discipline? And quite often, that's what it is, and that's what we come in and impact. Is we maybe are not necessarily telling them something overly novel. We're empowering them to, so to say, draw the line in the sand and say the buck stops with me. It's supposed to stop with me from my title, but actually live at that out. All right. And then have the discipline and the structure, so to say, to do that day in, day out. Like, it's lonely at the top.
It's lonely at the top.
G-Dub has said this all the time. Like, it's lonely at the top. Like being the leader, like the amount of discipline that takes when you're not feeling good, when you're not feeling, I got liken it back to being the dad, right? And or a single parent is like, that's great. Like, you have the sniffles today, or you had a bad day, or your wife's mad at you or whatever. But guess what? When you have a bad day and wear it on your sleeve, the other 200 people in the organization that look to you and depend on you and their kids and their meals and their ability to do what they have to do all ride on you being a certain way every single day. Like that's hard. Not everybody's cut out for that, being lonely at the top. But you have to understand, like, guess what? Like, that's the dynamic of the chair. The heavy lies that crown that you're sitting in, and that's what you have to do and accept and be able to live within as a leader in order to be a transformational, impactful leader.
And you're talking about discipline, okay? In your company, in your management, in your team, whatever it is. Accountability is at the very top of that thing. And then the most disrespectful thing you can do as a leader, as a manager, as a person that you're going to be the best at your job is waste another grown person's time. Being on time, you must be on time, and they need to see you coming into that organization, see you coming into every meeting, see you already there before they get there.
Hey, Gita, what are you telling us when you're not on time? What are you telling all the rest of us?
You're telling all the rest of us, F you, okay? That's what you're telling us.
I can count so many times where, and I think what's interesting too is you start to understand when you meet and talk with higher level people, how when you're in lower level environments, how that can creep into you. Where I remember when I first started going out and looking for a job, I showed up in a suit and I showed up early, and I was just very aggressive about things. And there were so many organizations that were like, oh, you're overdressed, or you're this, or you're, I'm like, I'm here to win. I'm competing against other people for this job.
Right.
Like,
That's exactly right.
I want you to remember me.
That's
right?
exactly right.
And I think that, like you said, seeing that at the higher levels and just doing those simple things and just boiling it down to, are you disciplined enough to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, to be able to do the things that you need to do day in and day out. It's like a superpower. And what I said, you remember the last time that we talked here, self-discipline is the ultimate form of self-love.
Agreed.
So if you can't discipline and get control over your own mind, how the hell are you going to get discipline and control over an organization of 200 people with their own lives, families, etc.
And when you say that again, on the discipline part of it is, and when you can't stay on time, okay, you're telling everybody I don't care, or I don't care, I don't care, I don't care, but you're also saying is I don't believe in it. I don't believe in those facets.
And going back to what you're talking about though, like with the dress and being on the front end, right? You know, of it, like coming in for the interview or something like that, right? And like, whoa, why are you so, you know, dressed up, sort of thing, right? Like that in there, like first of all, like to me, like that in right there tells you that leader doesn't get it.
He does not get it.
Or she doesn't get it, right? Which is this is reality. What you're saying to me, like if I'm looking at it, is you're dressing to impress.
Mhm.
All right, you're not one of us yet.
Right.
Like to me, if our dress code was this,
Yes.
right, but you showed up like this, all right, I say, okay, you're dressing. This is me as a leader. You're dressing to impress.
Impressionable.
If our dress code, general dress code in our office was this,
Right.
and you showed up like this, I'd be like,
You didn't-
you ain't. No, I'd be like, you're not one of us.
Mm.
Right, and so there lies.
You haven't earned
yeah, you
that.
haven't earned it. You're not one of us yet, bro. Like you're not. Like don't get this twisted, right? And so that's leadership and that's team, right? Like the SEALs are able to have their facial hair long and have their hair long and whatnot. It's part, but not before they become a SEAL, right?
Not
you know this as an
before.
ex-Marine, right?
Yeah. No
you know,
doubt
and
about
each
it.
of them kind of have their own grooming rules that show, hey, can I visually show you that we're part of this elite group?
Yeah.
But the rest of you guys can't, right? And so me as a leader, I'd always look at it. And so what I'd always tell people as a leader when they come in like that is I'd say, thank you. Like you dress to impress. Now what you're going to learn here is how you like dress to your day. So even at Lakefront Capital, right?
Yeah,
or
no
even
doubt.
when we're doing it, you're going to dress to the day. If we're going to be like if we're going to be out on a boat, right? I'm not going to be in a suit and tie. If I'm going to be in an environment where I need a suit and tie, or maybe even potentially I've got one client today that I need to be in a suit and tie for, I'm going to be in a suit, maybe sans tie for the rest of the clients or whatever, but I'm going to dress to the day, right? From
And you're
that
going to
standpoint.
explain that, and this is what has to be done. They see you doing it, and now they're supposed to do it. The same as for a leader that needs to show body language
Mhm.
before I open my mouth.
But to have that be the response on a person just coming in for interview number one, just what initially impacted me, it showed me like you don't get it, right? Like
Right.
one, how is that person supposed to know what to dress? Like two, are you even seeing that they're trying to impress you? Three, like why would you try to project the tradition or the traditions of the team and or whatever on in the culture here on somebody that's not even a part of it yet?
Right.
Like that makes no sense, right? You know, but
But like you said, that's and seeing that's a good segue into why more people need to check out this mastermind, because there's things that fundamentally that they don't get. So in closing, just you guys take 2 minutes, go into what you're offering at the mastermind, what's coming up, what you're offering, and we'll close this thing out.
yeah, and so it's going to be an all-day event. It's a high-ticket event. It's going to be $5,000 ticket event, but $1,000, so 20% of that is going to be a charitable write-off personally to you and or your business, and it's going to go to charity. And we are going to have more than just G-Dub and I. And so, but we're going to touch on leadership, high-level leadership, organizational development, communication, hiring. We're going to have the president of Lakefront Capital and founder of Lakefront Capital, Brian Boucher, my close friend, and that's my wealth management company that I also am a partner of, come out and talk about, hey, how to put together creative executive benefits packages, how to tie motivation of the money into loyalty within the company by even within privately held companies. This is what we do at Lakefront Capital for some of our businesses that are clients, is how do we create this vesting package and equity type package, right, that's tied you to me and me to you, sort of thing, without having to just throw extra cash at them. We're going to have a retired Colonel Christopher Kalinda, who was our commander of our strategic forces in the Afghan conflict from 2000 to 2008. He's going to come in and talk about, and he now, since he's been retired, is a C-suite in $250 million. So yeah, this is going to be an all-day event, high-level mastermind. We're going to have multiple sessions, 6 to 8 sessions, with multiple different people, not just G-Dub and I. But we're going to talk leadership, get in the nitty-gritty of leadership, organizational development, how to eliminate organizational silos, how to communicate and motivate, but then also from a financial standpoint, have a president and founder of Lakefront Capital, Brian Boucher, come in and talk about how we create executive benefits packages, especially within like privately held companies, to tie monetization right into loyalty of the company. Hey, we're investing in you, you invest in us. We're gonna have retired a good friend and mentor of ours as well too, retired Colonel Christopher Kalinda, who was our strategic commander from 2000 to 2008 in the Afghan conflict. Anybody out there that's read his book, Leadership, The Warrior's Art, his award-winning book, or some of his other award-winning books, or seen the movie or read the book, The Outpost. The Outpost was a true story of his command. He's going to come in and talk. He's now as a executive coach to CEOs of companies from a $250 million market cap up to multiple billion. That's kind of his market that he works in, and he's going to come in and talk about some tailored things around culture and trust and accountability. We're going to have James Amorosi, a legend, a titan of Wall Street, is going to come in and talk about private equity. We know that it's been a hard environment to raise money within. So how to do the private equity deals, how to exit your company if you're looking to sell your company, in the startup world, how to raise money, effectively raise money and structure the deals if you're looking to do that. And we're gonna have my main man Charles come in and talk about all things with integrating AI and all the newest things out there with your marketing and your marketing funnel, to be able to create exponential growth with all the new age technology that's out there within your marketing, within your company as well too, whether it be on the hiring side of things or the prospecting, client side of things. It's going to be a big time, event October 24th here in Cleveland.
Awesome. And Greg,
And the biggest thing is that what I love about all these different topics is how do we formulate all those things together, the speakers, into being the best team, the best company you can be. Okay, and these great speakers that will have things identified specifically of their expertise, those are just like anybody else, that you have different areas in your company for the total growth and wealth of your company. You have to be unified. And how to be unified, and how do you manage people in a unified way. And those are the things I think I've been a big part of in my life, is making all teams win.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Well, yeah. Well, that's it for us then. We can go ahead and cut it.
Well,
start recording.